Ace Area 51 with a membership super chat, member for 7 months. Thank you, Ace Area 51. Such a contrast between POTUS reaction to Aaron Bushnell compared to Arab Spring self-immolation. Search up Obama honors Bouaziz.
Oh.
I watched that today on stream. It's like night and day. But like
we didn't talk.
Nope. Well, so, go ahead.
I was gonna say we didn't talk about this at all. Maybe we should pull the super chat down and we should do a quick couple minutes on. I'm sure you guys have talked about it on your streams, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Multiple times.
Right.
David did a really good video on it, actually. A very responsible video, I'd say.
What'd you say, David? I didn't see it.
Oh, it was like the day after, and it was like a 20-minute video, but it just broke down what he did and the historical context to it, and how there were some attempts to try and paint this as like, mental illness or something, but this is just an extreme form of protest that has been going on for 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of examples of it, and also a lot of my focus was on the media response to it, and CNN actually did a good job, like a 2-minute discussion on it, and they broke it down. They discussed what his last words were. Meanwhile, MSNBC kind of like tossed it aside and then ended it with like a suicide hotline number, and it's just like, no, this is not right.
Yeah,
liberals were doing that across the board. Like that was infuriating me so much.
That reaction to it is something I have never, ever seen for any other similar act of protest. When the Vietnamese monk self-immolated to protest how Vietnam was treating the Buddhists at that time, right before the Vietnam War. No one, I don't recall, like, I'm not even talking about then either. To this day, it's covered historically as an incredible act of protest. Like something that's looked at as like, wow, this person was principled and, felt strongly about what they were putting their life on the line for. It wasn't, these acts have never been viewed. And then like the super chat just said, and how Len said he was watching earlier, the Tunisian man who sparked the entire Arab Spring.
Yeah.
When he self-immolated because of the constant cracking down from the Tunisian government of him just trying to live his life selling, in that they had like a market, and he worked and he was his livelihood basically, and he just couldn't take it anymore, and as an act of protest against his government, he did this. I mean, I've never ever seen anyone call this like suicide or mental illness before. I've never seen anyone even discuss this as like, you got to be careful how you talk about this. Copycats, This is not an act. It was
with intent, and it worked. It worked. Every single person suddenly was like, no, I'm not trying to advocate for people killing themselves. I'm not trying to advocate for, committing like self-harm or stuff like that. I'm simply stating that we need to acknowledge that he was very clear and concise. People who have mental illness are not, stating every single thing that they're about to do right before they do like an incredibly violent act like this, after the fact, pre-planned everything out. I'm going to donate all of my money to Palestinian charities. I'm going to have all of these messages come out. Like
they did as well, I think.
Yeah, he did his will as well, and then he also tried. Like people were also trying to say that this was left-wing indoctrination and radicalization, and that this is what the end result of people, and the way they're talking about martyrs and using terms like martyrs and language like that, and this is what it's going to lead to is this kind of, we have to vilify him, we have to mock him, we have to mock his suicide, all that kind of stuff. It's honestly, it's sick. Like Matt's saying, I don't think I've seen it done this way, where someone doing such an extremely violent thing. Like the whole reason it had power and obviously something people were talking about is because of how horrifying it is. It's not glorifying the act of burning yourself alive. There's a reason why this particular form of protest historically is just jaw-dropping, both in its like the amount of pain it must cause you, the visual nature of it. It's like it's the most horrifying thing you can imagine, and someone's doing it as a form of protest,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you certainly to do this, you certainly have to be in a certain mental state. Like, this isn't an act that just anyone can do. Like, that's the whole thing about how ridiculous this whole, we have to be careful about copycats. This isn't a copycat thing. This is a brutally painful way to basically show your feelings for a specific issue. You're ready to go out, literally die on this hill and say, this is what I'm fighting for. This is what I believe in so much that I'm willing to give my life to it. It's not something that I've ever seen discussed in this way, and it was a way to demean him in the act, obviously. And you know, it was incredibly gross, honestly, to see how people were talking about this, and
or still talking about this.
Yeah, still talking.
Yeah,
about it.
the ADL is trying to defame him, ironically.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and the fact that he was in the Air Force makes it, you know, that much more symbolic, because you could argue, you know, he put his life on the line for the country, and here he is turning it around and doing it for this cause. The image of that, and like I don't know about you, I couldn't watch the full video. I know myself. I know I don't need to watch the full video to get what happened, but I watched the beginning where he discussed what he was going to do, and he was very calm, very like, he knew exactly what he was doing, why he was doing it. There was no question there. He was in his right state of mind for what he was about to do, and it was powerful.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, the image of the guy with the gun pointed at him as well, that like really stuck with me.
Yeah, that was insane.
Because it's like, you know, this is somebody who is no threat to anyone but himself, and you're sitting there shooting, and then the guy who brought the fire extinguisher was like, I don't need guns, I need fire extinguishers. It just, like, to me, like, it was so striking, because it's like, that really is a microcosm of like the broader problem with the United States, where it doesn't matter what's happening. Like, we always respond by violence. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like, just more violence. That's how you respond to everything, every single issue, including somebody lighting themselves on fire. So that also like was another element that wasn't discussed as much, which is good, because you want the message to be discussed. But it also was just so striking to me to see. Like, I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we you know, as a progressive, you know, I personally believe, you know, there are countries, even states here in the U.S., where people can choose to end their life. Like, it's called dying with dignity. Like, people who have a terminal illness, or, you know,
you can in Canada too. It has to be approved by two doctors, but yeah, you can.
Right, but they can choose to end their life and decide that, you know, they don't want to be here. You know, I personally ascribe to the belief, just who I am, is that, you know, I don't believe in an afterlife or anything. So in my view, we, in the big picture as individuals, are here on this earth for a very short period of time. And so I would like to be here as long as possible and make the absolute most of it, because I have all of eternity for whatever it is that I will be doing after I die.
Not this.
Right. So, but like, that's my personal opinion. Like, if someone was to tell me they were going to do this act, I would try to talk them out of it, because of that belief that I have, that's my personally held belief. But if someone else just doesn't want to, believes the opposite, like they don't want to be here, and they are not suffering from a mental illness or incapacitated in any way, where they're not thinking straight, suffering from depression or anything, if they are not in that state, if that's not what's happening to them, then who am I to say they don't have that right? I can choose to be here for as long as I want, and they can't choose to be here for as long as they want. I mean, it's just, and to choose to do that in order to stand up for something that they believe in. Like, you know, again, I would tell them not to do it, and I would, you know, but that's me. That's not, that person's not me. And the idea that we talk about him, like he doesn't have a grasp on what he did or had the right to do it, is just, I don't, like, you know, it's beyond me. He didn't hurt anybody except himself, and he was very clear as to why he was doing it. And, you know,
it's with intent though, right? Because look at what the conversation changes to. Rather than talk about how sick of a world it is that someone would think they had to do this just to be heard or get their message out or oppose or try to protest genocide, we're talking about whether or not it's okay to even talk about what he did. You know, is it in danger? Is it furthering people who might have suicidal ideation? Is it you're going to hurt people people who have mental health issues? Did he have mental health issues? Is that like that all of a sudden becomes the conversation, rather than like, once again, in other cases historically, you can look towards people being like, this was a horrifying thing that happened, and it was a very, very difficult but brave form of protest that someone just did. That's how it's like. Obama speaks that way about, again, the person who launched the Arab Spring.
Yeah, and honestly, like the fact that there's even a conversation about his mental health, and like that's being perceived as mental illness, when the people doing the genocide, like they're not the ones that were speculating whether or not they're mentally ill, as they gleefully murder indiscriminately, and the people supporting it and cheerleading it, like that to me is very sick as well. Because it's the ones that care about genocide that I think are the sane ones.
Right. Yeah. Like what, why isn't it insanity to think what's going on is fine? Why isn't it insanity to support what's going on? Why isn't it insanity to cheer on what's going on? Why isn't it mental illness to sign up to take part in it and actively want to go out there and be a part of killing innocent civilians? That's not considered mental illness. Like I do think the act of Aaron, like, I personally, before he did this, I would have assumed that an act like this, because it happened. Someone else, a woman in, I think, DC did this.
I didn't even know about that. Because the reason we all know about this is because he live streamed his actual version. Plus, he's a service member too, right? So
right. I think the live streaming obviously is a big part of it, but I think the bigger part of it is who he was. He was an active member of the military.
He was IT, by the way, and not a lot of people know that. He was working directly in information, and he was getting and controlling a huge amount of the flow of information. He was privy to so much of it, not just the stuff that civilians would see, but the stuff that the military had access to. And as a result of that, like, I saw a lot of people online who were like, can't I reveal who I am? But, I'm working within the military. Heads are spinning over this one. Like, this is not a normal thing. This is not something that, everyone's like, oh, that it's just par for the course. It happens. This is a holy fuck moment,
Yeah.
But I think him being a military, active military member played a huge role in how much attention this did get, because I think in our current, world where the news cycle moves so quickly and we just hear about death and destruction all the time, even before this latest situation in Gaza. We've become desensitized. So I would have assumed that this wouldn't have got all that much attention, as much attention as it did get. And I do think the fact of and he knew this. He did it in uniform. He knew exactly what he was doing and why it would be significant that he was doing it. It just all goes to show that he was of sound mind in terms of knowing what he was doing when he chose to do this. Again, I do think you have to have a certain mental state that not the vast majority of people will never be in or be able to get to, because it's just such a rare act. But to say that's mental illness is incorrect.